I think it's ironic that right now, one group says this is a civil rights issue, but no, you can't vote on it. You can't vote on my civil rights. You can't vote. When my father was threatened at gunpoint, people were killed and lynched over the fact that they could not vote. And it looks like we're telling all these people in the city, you have no civil rights because my civil rights are so important.
This is Faith Complex, a dialogue about the entanglement of religion, politics, and art.
Hello, my name is Jacques Berlinerblau of Georgetown University, and you're watching Faith Complex. Joining us today is Bishop Harry Jackson. He is senior pastor of Hope Christian Church and chairman of the Stanford Marriage DC Coalition. He's also the author of Personal Faith and Public Policy. Bishop Jackson, welcome to Faith Complex.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Tell us about the Stanford Marriage DC Coalition. We hear a lot about this in the news. A lot about it.
Well, and you know what? I wish we weren't hearing so much about it. It's a funny story. We started this group as a result of my sitting in the city council chambers back in April and hearing the whole same-sex marriage debate. And at that point, reciprocity was what they were looking at, acknowledging marriages from other localities. And I really felt that there really was a lack of due process, that this was going to be decided by the council only. People wouldn't have gotten any chance to vote. So I talked with some friends, left the meeting, started the Stanford Marriage group, along with several other national and local groups.
All right, so what was the marriage initiative of 2009?
Well, that was really defining marriage as simply a union between a man and a woman. And obviously, if you define it that way, you would exclude gay marriage in the mix. And the reason we did it is we felt like when you redefine marriage, there are all kind of unintended consequences, such as family gets redefined, therefore parenting, who adopts kids, how that works gets redefined. Education of necessity is redefined in what can be taught at 8 years old or in the 8th grade, what sex education looks like. And we're going to take the thing to the highest levels, only because our real premise is that the people in the District of Columbia have a right based on the charter to bring forth an initiative or a referendum.
This is a question of process.
It's a question of process.
Okay.
And I just can't understand how folks are saying, well, the charter, which is tantamount to a constitution of a state or a constitution of a nation, well, we're going to ignore the charter because of a rule or an act that was essentially a subsequent law. Doesn't make sense. It's not good law. Shouldn't stand.
Let's clarify the record. All right? I'm sure that you're going to say you are definitely not anti-gay.
Yeah.
You are not homophobic.
Yep, as far as I can tell.
Finish the sentence for us. You're simply opposed to?
I'm simply opposed to the redefinition of a foundational structure in culture without there really being proof that this is not going to destroy marriage. Think about it this way from an African-American perspective. I pastor a multiracial church, but today in DC, 40% of young black women will never be married. You're going to have 7 or 8 of our babies born out of wedlock here in DC. You're going to have 40% of the pregnancies terminated by abortion here in this district. And so we're in this unique place where everywhere else the same-sex marriage has been legalized. There is an acceleration of out-of-wedlock births, an acceleration of people who wait to get married till later.
But the gay marriage isn't depriving African-American women of male partners, is it? I don't see the correlation between those.
The correlation is, if you'll follow some of the studies by guys like Dr. Stanley Kurtz of Harvard, or Harvard-trained guy, that when this dynamic happens, evidently there's a subtle, devaluation of the institution.
Now, in my life, I've seen some very, very healthy gay marriages. I've seen some of my gay friends being deacons in their church. Surely you wouldn't want to deprive society of that possibility.
Well, what I'm doing is, in my view, protecting an institution versus trying to prevent someone from the kind of expression that you see.
You've spoken about some of your processional concerns with
Yep.
the way the initiative was brought to the ballot or not brought to the ballot.
Yes, sir.
You've cited some psychological studies, which seem extremely interesting to me. What about some of the theological concerns that you bring to the fore? Is there a theological predicate of your opposition to gay marriage?
Well, you know there is. And thank you for coming to that last, because I think all too often, we as men of the cloth, when we approach these issues, we come out with the theology first, and I think that really hurts the discussion in the public square. I think my views religiously are mine. They should be for our parishioners. They should inform our debate in the culture, but we should not mandate our belief system. That being said, I believe the Bible is very clear on its teachings against same-sex marriage, as it relates to first the whole homosexual lifestyle. Now, that's not where we start or finish publicly. I think my public issue is the people should vote on it, and if the District of Columbia voted to have same-sex marriage, I'd be applauding the democratic process.
The gay African-American couple that adopts a young African-American child, ultimately that's that's the culture of life, isn't it? That's celebrating the culture of life, which I know is a big part of your ministry.
It is. And you know, the black child is the least wanted child on all the preferred adoption list. It's a child that folk will go overseas and pay thousands of dollars for an Asian kid or white kid, but the poor black kids often are thrown away. If I had no other choice, gay couple, for a black kid, I would be very reluctant until I understand what that home is going to look like, and some kind of history sociologically, that there's not going to be further psychological damage. Let me get it out to the child.
Well, let's play it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of couples like this. Let's say two professionals, high income, PhDs, MAs, doctorates, you name it, and
Wow.
members of their church, maybe a Methodist church, let's say, or maybe United Metropolitan Church.
Right.
Would that be acceptable to you?
At this point, I'm not at the point where I can. What I need is more hard data. So let me start off by saying, we're talking now in a sociological realm, not a theological realm. My theology says, not good, don't condone it, but they're not in my church. So my teachings would say, don't do that. So as I'm approaching the culture, however, I'm thinking as long as it's legal, and then those folks really work on the art of parenting.
I've learned a lot about you in this interview, and a lot of things are said about Bishop Harry Jackson Jr. Tell us something other than what we've learned today. Tell us something about yourself that a lot of people don't know.
Well, a lot of people wouldn't know that I was born in Tallahassee, Florida. And my dad left Tallahassee because he was threatened at gunpoint by a state trooper who discharged his weapon right over my dad's ear, temporarily deafening him, because my dad had been involved with voter registration. And he said, boy, next time I'm going to kill you. And so my dad got this incredible revelation. It's time to leave Florida. And he left Florida, went to Ohio. So I'm somebody who has a civil rights heritage in terms of this is in my blood.
Bishop Jackson, you have an extensive appreciation and experience and understanding of the civil rights movement.
Yes, sir.
Does it ever worry you that you might be in the process right now with your activism in Stand for Marriage, that you might be in the process of denying another minority group their civil rights?
Well, I'm concerned, but I don't believe that the individual rights of gay people are being abridged through my stand on marriage. I see the institution of marriage being distinct from an individual civil rights. The ultimate of civil rights that we looked at in the past when my dad was threatened at gunpoint about was the right to vote. And I think it's ironic that right now, one group says this is a civil rights issue, but no, you can't vote on it. You can't vote on my civil rights. You can't vote. When my father was threatened at gunpoint, people were killed and lynched over the fact that they could not vote. And it looks like we're telling all these people in the city, you have no civil rights because my civil rights are so important.
Bishop Harry Jackson, thank you so much for coming to Faith Complex today.
Thank you, sir, for having me.